Chapter 7, Reese and Violetta. Man, I need some sleep. Rubbing my eyes, I jumped out into the sun. We came to Slayheim by carriage to cheer for Reese at the violin contest. But my internal clock is out of sync. Maribel, wearing a costume, also got out of the carriage, wobbling. Are you two alright? Reese's deer-like eyes opened wide with concern. I'm alright, don't worry. Maribel waved her hands slightly. You shouldn't have stayed up so late. Please try to at least keep awake when my turn comes around. I told you not to worry. You're not too convincing when you're about to get run over by a carriage, Maribel. The city is always so noisy. It never changes. Reese frowned as he supported Maribel's back. My impression's a little different. When I think about my mother who lives here, it pains my heart. It makes me want to ask why my mother abandoned us to live in the city. Really? There's nothing good here. I like Courtly a lot better. Maybe so. Oh, is that the concert hall? Alright, let's go. Seeing Reese's face shine, I smirked. Shrugging my shoulders, I started to follow him when I noticed Maribel looking at me. What is it, Maribel? Reese usually acts more mature than you, but it's the opposite today. That's why watching humans in their growth period is fun, she said. I didn't know how to answer her, but I could predict the expression hidden under her costume. I hastened my feet. Finding Reese and Maribel after signing in and dressing up, I called them over to where I was saving them seats in the waiting room. Hey, isn't she... Violetta! The shoulders covered by a blue chiffon turned back. Chiffon? Not sure how to pronounce that. Reese, are you here for the contest? This isn't an easy contest the likes of you can win. You're still mad, right? I'm sorry. Don't give me that false modesty. You're just making fun of me, aren't you? No, I wouldn't do such a thing. Liar, like the time about the ribbon, or I don't remember much about it, but how about the day of the first snow? That's not true. Glaring at Reese's fumbling his words, she got red up to her ears and yelled, That's enough, I hate you. Oh, Violetta. In the strangely tiring air, Maribel opened her mouth. Oh no. You're almost up? Yes, oh. Standing up with the violin in one hand, Reese looked around. What's the matter? My music scores are gone. Reese turned pale and looked at Maribel. Did you look for it? I know I placed it next to the violin. We looked up at each other. It's Violetta. She took Reese's scores. So she's the one. I am at fault. She never should have got away with it. Reese, Jack, and I will retrieve the score. You stay right here and wait. Reese nodded, almost crying. Shoot, where is she? We looked around the hall, but she was nowhere in sight. The next performer is Mr. Reese Farlane. I bit into my lips at the announcement. There's no time left. What should we do, Jack? I'd like to know that too. At the moment, a carefree voice called me from the back. My, it's Jack. How have you been? Miss Anastasia. She was wearing a dress with white bubbled laces, standing with a violin and a music score in her hands. Seeing the scores, an idea raced through my head. That's it. Maribel, Miss Anastasia, I need your help. After I explained it, Maribel put on a wry face. Isn't that too flashy a performance? Doesn't it suit your taste, Maribel? Alright, let's go with that plan, Miss Anastasia said with a chuckle. I guess it will have to do. We have no time left either. Okay, here we go. We dashed out of the waiting room and ran towards the back row seats. Securing some space on the spot, I took out the scores. Trying to remember my design drawings, I frantically folded the papers up. The lights turned on, Jack. I caught Reese coming out of the corner of my eyes. He looked as scared as a sacrificial lamb. Maribel, Miss Anastasia, let it fly. Leave it to me, Roger. They started throwing the music score airplanes one after another onto the stage. The white planes flew steadily up and then dived down onto the stage. Reese startled for a second, picked them up and spread them open. The audience fell silent, not expecting such a sight. In the midst of a silent hall, Reese finished spreading all the scores and readied his violin. Tension ran through the hall. After a moment, and a decorous tone flowed from the strings. Feeling eased, I fell back into the nearest seat. Sorry, Reese. It's probably my fault that you didn't get the win. I apologized as the carriage clanked its wheels. I'm happy for what you all did for me than getting an award. I'm really grateful. Caressing the trophy he received as a special reward, he moved his eye onto Maribel, sleeping quietly next to him, and gently smiled. But don't mention it. I'll make apple pie when we get home, so let's celebrate then. That's a good idea. Let's send one to Miss Anastasia too. Reese laughed at me as I recalled the taste of pie in my hand. Or head. Or, yeah, hand? Head? What's this? You're telling me that girl was kidnapped? Maravel's loud voice resounds through the quiet castle walls. On top of that, we were the ones that guided the kidnapper to the Bubka residence. We didn't think a kidnap could happen in this town. In our regular meeting room, Reese and I let out a big sigh. It's a heavy responsibility. And besides, she's our classmate. We wanted to help her out somehow. Maravel looked at us amused. You don't have any hard feelings about the contest? That doesn't matter. Reese bristled and his face turned red. I don't like holding grudges for every little thing. So Maravel, this thug wants Violetta's big sis to carry the ransom to him. That smells like a dangerous trap, doesn't it? So we want to do something about it. Maravel, who had her right hand to her chin, looked up. There was a mischievous twinkle in both of her eyes. What else is new? How about this? I'll go disguised as Violetta's sister to the exchange site. Then Red and Blue will come out and capture the culprit. I can't let you do something that dangerous. I think so too, Maravel. Please think it over. There's nothing to worry about, just believe in my powers. I know how powerful you are, but what if something happens to you? Ah, that's enough. Maravel stood up and banged the table. When I say it's alright, it is alright. As we walked home silently, our shadows were stretched long by the moonlight. Hey, say, we're congenial friends that even say things simultaneously. You think so too? Of course I do. If we go with Maravel's plan, it'll make us look like chickens. You said it alright. We planted ourselves down on the nearby tree stump. First, the kidnapper will probably underestimate us as kids, so under the half moon, our rescue plan meeting continued. I brought the ransom money, just as we planned. We switched with Violetta's big sis and approached the culprit using our best girl voice. We shifted the time up from the time we told Maravel. Even so, the skirt thingy is really hard to move. It's also because I'm hiding Canavan's matchet that we secretly borrowed. Good, now hand over the money. Wait, release my sister first, Reese yelled with a trembling voice. He's quite an actor. Very well, move it. Violetta was shoved out and came running towards us, but stopped surprised recognizing who we were. Are you alright, Violetta? As we trotted up to her, her eyes got even bigger. Yes, but just keep quiet and hide behind us. Jeez, get with it, will you? She's a girl, so I guess we can't expect too much. As I thought to myself, the culprit approached us, clanking his spurred boots. Okay, hand me the money now. Yes, here it is. Reese hands out the bag of money. I stealthily fingered the matchet through the hole I cut out inside the pocket. You know, little missies, you look quite cute for being a daughter of Bubka's. It's turning out just as we thought. I looked over and nodded at Reese. Y'all will sell for a hefty price. Now I charge the back of the thug as he gleefully fondled Reese's chin. I took out the matchet at the same time and pinned it at him as he rolled on the ground. Huh? You brat, what the hell? Don't get any nearer than that, or else. Violetta, run away from here now! Reese yelled as he got in front of her and covered her mouth. Okay, I'll call Papa for help. Violetta gathered her courage and started for town. You stupid brats, how dare you ruin my master plan? You're gonna pay. Wiping off his cut lip, he pulled out a knife and stood up. In the same motion, he came charging towards us. No, I can't. I'm not ready to do something that might kill a man. It seems Reese had the same feeling as we both stood frozen with a naked blade in our hands. Like a slow-motion film, the oily face came closer and closer. Along with a great impact, we were knocked into the ground head first. That was a bad stunt you pulled, brat. As my head spun around in circles, he pulled his knife up above his head. Darn it. As I closed my eyes, a familiar voice came into my ears. Kubali! Simultaneously with the voice, the ground up under the thug mounded up. Isn't that the summon that Maravel uses in Wild Arms 2? I think it is. The giant metallic pillar that grew out of the ground opened its eyes. Yeah, this is the thing. Yah! A strong shock wave flared from its body and blew the culprit into the air. I was stunned at the sight. I watched the culprit stagger away, looking all beat up. It looks like I made it just in time. From behind the metallic pillar arrived Maravel in a jumpsuit, taking off a semi-cracked pair of goggles from her head. Maravel, what is this? It's an advanced golem that incorporates red and blue into a bigger and stronger frame. Its name is Kubali Test Type. After her explanation, she gave out a short command. Grumbling loudly, Kubali dove into the ground again. If you learn your lesson, you're to never leave me behind again. Yes, Maribel. We sank our heads in dejection. You two were very brave, though. Maribel winked her eye and grinned. Really? I'm sure of it. Although it would have been better if we didn't let the culprit run away. Maribel, you noticed it too? Well, I was just regretting that fact now. Then we heard footsteps of several people approaching. Violetta and Mr. Bubka have brought the sheriff along. When we told them that we lost a criminal, Mr. Bubka and the sheriff frowned for a moment. But Mr. Bubka took out our hands and thanked us. You saved my daughter, heedless of the danger. Thank you, thank you. We could tell how much he was worried by his sweaty hands. Smiling a little, I looked behind me. Violetta was standing in front of me, in front of Maribel. I'm really sorry for a lot of things. Don't mind it, I acted a little immature as well. Maribel smiled delicately. Next time, come to my castle, all three of you. Parting with the words, I'll be waiting. She swiftly disappeared. Oh, I am beat. I am beat. There's a lot of reading. I really like this story. I really like it. It's not too, it's a cute little story. Also just a nice callback to Wild Arms too. We could do chapter 8. The Spring Sonata. When I found it, only the name Clementine Bexon gleamed out at me from the ashes. When was it that I learned that grandmother burned the letters coming from my mom? And when was it that I realized that mom went away to live with a man in the city, just as the villagers said? Darn it, I was awakened by my own voice. To my annoyance, traces of tears were on my face. I no longer cry thinking about her when I'm awake. Why is it that my heart saddens so when I'm asleep? Putting my thoughts away, I got dressed, feeling irritated. You're pretty late. Violetta was already at the cabin, looking a little nervous. Yep, today's the day we promised to take Violetta to meet Maribel. Sorry, where's Reese? He was making pudding to bring with us, but he was out of vanilla extract, so he went to town to buy it. I wouldn't mind a little smell. Reese is a perfectionist. You got that right, I said. Then I felt a small presence by the door. Something wrong, Jack? I thought I heard a knock. We looked at each other's faces. No one bold enough to come visit old Canavan's cabin ever knocks. Yes, who is it? I was puzzled, but opened the door. Good day. A beautiful lady with green eyes and black hair was standing in the doorway. She seemed very familiar. Hi, who are you? As I racked my brains thinking, Violetta let off a cheer behind me. You're Miss Karina, I presume. The pianist? As Violetta talked excitedly with a higher than usual voice to Miss Karina, I made some tea. I knew Reese's complex feelings, so I hesitated in getting too social with Miss Karina without him around. Here you go, ma'am. The scent of apple tea rose up from the steaming cup. Excuse me, as I listened to their conversation quietly, Miss Karina addressed me. You must be Reese's friend. You wouldn't mind if I asked how he's doing, would you? Her pretty face resembling Reese's smiled tenderly. Of course, he's really good at violin and even his grades. I answered haphazardly, not knowing what I should be saying. I'm relieved I haven't let him go to school before, so I was a little worried. It looks like he has good friends, she added. Ah, yes, she looks like the model mom type. Feeling embarrassed, I strolled my eyes. There was a small clatter at the door. Sorry, I hope I didn't make you wait too long. Reese came running in out of breath. Recognizing Miss Karina in the room, his whole body tensed up. Mother, why are you here? Responding to Reese's hoarse voice, she stood up. Congratulations placing in the contest. I heard your performance. You've gotten very good. Thanks. So I asked you once, but what brings you here to this cabin? Reese returned a cold voice. I'm here to take you with me. If you intend to keep playing the violin, it's better you join the band now and get to know them. Huh? The bag slipped from his hands. A breaking sound of its contents rang through the room. What's that all about, Reese? Please listen to me, Miss Karina said quietly. Oh, she mad. No, I don't want to. This was the first time I saw Reese so infuriated. I cursed my weak position not having any say in the situation. Violetta was also looking wide-eyed, not able to say anything. Reese, I'm sure what I didn't come out the right way, but I sent you here because I thought that would be the best for you. That's a lie. A lie because... Reese glared at Miss Karina like a cornered, wounded beast. His lips opened and closed like a goldfish out of water. Did you really think I don't know anything? What's he trying to say? Is it that... Reese, no. But I was a moment too late. And what's with that gossip? Reese screamed out. That gossip, Reese. You didn't. I thought I heard Miss Karina's blood flush down from her face. You've already forgotten about Father, and you thought I'd get in the way of your new life. A sharp sound was heard. Reese's cheeks became red. You thought it'd be that way, uttered Miss Karina as she bit into her lips. I was concerned about Reese, but I chased after Miss Karina as she stepped out of the cabin. Please wait, I called to stop her. She turned around with a sad face, one step away from breaking into tears. There was something about her manner when her back was turned that prevented me from stopping her. All I could do was watch her walk away. Then I noticed a silver locket on the ground. When I bent down to pick it up, the springs of the locket were pretty worn out, and it opened up by itself. There was a little picture of Reese inside. Reese, you don't know how lucky you are. I grit my back teeth and went back to the cabin. I showed the silver locket to Reese, who was giving a cold shoulder to Violetta as she tried to comfort him. Miss Karina dropped this. Looks like she really holds you dearly. Reese slants his eyes up with anger. That woman. I don't want to think of her as my mother. I'm even envious that you don't have a mother. My head went faint. When I came to, Reese was on the ground in front of me. You disappoint me. There was a lot more things I wanted to say, but they couldn't come out of me. Not being able to stand it, I violently opened the door and ran out. Oh, brother. I was supposed to bring the two back together, but I got into a fight instead. So much for that. I sagged my shoulders and went up the road to the castle. This was not something I can handle, so I thought about discussing it with Maribel. Jack. Violetta came running up next to me. I also gave him a hard word or two. Say, you're going up to the castle, right? Yeah, I'll introduce you to Maribel as we promised. Going into the library, Maribel stood up as she saw Violetta coming in and greeted her politely. Violetta returned the greeting in the same fashion. I guess it's a start after all they've gone through. Convinced that things were okay between the two, I quickly ran down the situation to Maribel. So Reese is being a little stubborn. Maribel held her head after listening to my story. In his heart, he understands his mother's feelings. It's just that he can't get himself to be honest and is playing the baby. Your situation is similar to his, I suppose. Yeah, I think so. Is that really so? I shook my head. I don't understand such a thing. To be able to betray someone knowing that they care about you. That person might even get fed up with the spoiled attitude and abandon them for good. It was just a casual remark, but the two fell awkwardly silent. I did it. Sighing, I tried to say an apology, but they started apologizing to me first. I must apologize for that, Jack. Yes, there's a truth in your words, too. Makes me feel more awkward when they look so apologetic, but I couldn't say such a thing. I tried to laugh it off and change the subject for the meantime. Let's think of a plan to get the two back together. They put on a forced smile and nodded, sipping on her tea. Violetta opened her lips. How about the opposite of before? I mean, using the golem. We'll make it assault. Reese and Miss Karina will come to save him. What? That will be a dead giveaway. I thought that was a good idea. Violetta frowned her lips. I know, how about we say that the locket Jack has right now was lost? It'll get Reese to worry and to feel that he's lost something dear. I think that's more of a prank. Maribel tilts her head and points her lips. I think it's better not to use any cheap tricks. Then what are you saying we should do? Violetta blurts out, but Maribel smiled in agreement. No, I think Jack has a point. Reese should have recovered his cool by now. Okay then, let's go back to town. If we don't hurry, Miss Karina will be gone before we make up with Reese. You're right, the snow is mostly melted away, so we'll take the anti-gravity bike to town. Spring sundown brought a sweet smell to the air. We rode through this air on the flying bike towards town. But as we continued to seek a solution to the problem, matters were taking a sudden turn. Huh? Maribel looked down at a point with a suspicious frown. What's up? It's Reese. He's running with a frantic look on his face. What happened, Reese? Lowering the bike, Reese answered while catching his breath. The guy that kidnapped Violetta kidnapped my mother. He wants to take the money from her band. What? Is that for real? Reese? I didn't expect real danger to come, rather than the stage one we talked about. Yes, I'm looking for him with my uncle right now. And I thought I taught him a lesson. Maribel got off of her bike and sat down on the rear seat of mine and said, Reese, take the handle of that bike. I will use all my powers to search for the bandit. Reese nodded and quickly got into the bike. We paired up, me plus Maribel on the first, Reese plus Violetta on the second. On the bike and started the chase at full speed. There he is. I found him. At the place where Maribel pointed, there was a man threatening Miss Karina with an arm in hand. An arm? In wild arms? What do you think you're doing? Reese yelled. The man looked up, surprised by the voice, his face slowly covered with the color of hatred. Well, it's no miracle that he's mad being stopped by us kids every time. But there was no time to think such gibberish. The man pulled out a pistol and aimed a barrel at Reese. No! Karina screamed and tackled the man. Losing balance, he irritatingly smacked his lips and kicked Miss Karina off. Whoa, she could have been shot. Reese grit his teeth as I was awed next to him. Darn it. Snarling unlikely words, Reese turned to me with an indecisive look. Jack, let's go. Roger that. Recognizing his intentions, I returned a big nod. Making a plan in the blink of an eye, Reese charged from the rear and I charged from the front towards the culprit. The man's debased face wrinkled in the fear as we zoomed in. Go! We called out in chorus and crossed courses in proximity, almost brushing the man's clothes. When the man sank down weakly, the bike shook widely. Maribel jumped off of the rear seat and saying, "You're done for," casts magic on the terrified man. Violetta also got off at the same time and ran up to Miss Karina. We make a good team. We tied the man's wrists with handkerchiefs, chained together as the man continued to snore in deep sleep. That's the end of it, said Maribel, brushing the dirt off her sleeve. But I shook my head. For us, that is. With my hand stuck in my pocket, I turned towards Reese. Nodding shortly, he stopped momentarily and muttered as he looked down. Everyone, thank you for everything. Jack, sorry for what I said. I smiled wryly and as apology. You can keep that for later. Hurry up and get over there. Reese nodded and rushed over to Miss Karina. She smiled gently and carefully brushed Reese's hair. The touching scene stabbed my heart painfully. I really hated that I couldn't rejoice for them either. Holding back my tears, I turned away. Maribel showed a look of concern at me, but I can be forgiven, right? Because Miss Karina was the image of the mother that I always longed for. Oh man, that is touching. Chapter 9, A Tale of Early Summer. Grandma, I'm home. Huh? The usual Radio 9 that runs at this hour isn't on. What gives? Grandma Dahlia, are you there? Casually looking into the kitchen, I dropped my pack in surprise. Grandma was in the kitchen, both hands grasped and crying uncontrollably. Her bony hands held her white apron tightly. Grandma, what's wrong? It's nothing, Jack. Hurrying to her, Grandma hastily shoved the white object in her hand into her apron. A rustling of paper was heard. Grandma, is that? By intuition, I realized what it was. It's a letter from Mom. I won't let you burn it this time. I grabbed the letter from Grandma's hands and ran outside. Jack, stop, you shan't read it. I'm sorry, Grandma. I left Grandma in the dust, a 50-year age difference is big, and ran up the Riverside Road to the transporter. The Crimson Castle was colored red in the afternoon sun. I sat myself down on the edge of the fountain in the inner court. Calming my breath down, I tried to open the letter. Oops, looks like the front and back of the letter got stuck together because of the sweat from gripping too hard. Restraining myself from ripping the thin paper, I carefully peeled open the last crease of the letter. Okay, that should do it. Letting go the finger that opened the letter, I nervously read what's inside. I felt a hammering shock running through my head. Notice of death, Clementine Bexon. The mechanically typed letter slipped out of my hands. It's a lie. I thought I screamed out, loud, but my tongue was tense and all that came out was an indecipherable utterance. No! An incredible amount of various emotions invaded my whole head. Darn it! What have I? No. Repeatedly cursing to something or anything at all, I falteringly walked inside the castle. Upon reaching the usual room, I opened the cupboard. Holding back my pulsation and suffocation, I pulled out the design plans of all the planes I'd made. There were more than what 2 hands could carry, and it made me feel miserable. Returning back to the fountain, I violently slammed the load down. Placing dried branches on top of it, I twisted a plan sheet to make a fuse. Strangely, I felt no grief or sorrow. A very pure and lucid feeling filled inside of me. Farewell, Mom. I took out a match from my back pocket and lit it. I moved the fuse up to the small fire. But at that moment, a white arm extended to stop my right hand. Turning back, Maribel was standing with a calm complexion. Let me go. No, I won't. I said let go. I yelled as my voice turned into a snuffle. No, I won't. Just as the red match flame burned out, my emotions snapped. I can't stand it. There's no more use to any of this. Yelling, I slammed my palms down on the ground. What are you doing? She shook as she tried to stop me. These hands, they're so powerless. Even in the end, I couldn't hold Mom back. I was left behind just like when Mom went away. The same way. The last part didn't come out. Maribel came by my side in silence. Your hands are not powerless. She was looking at me with a kind face. Come, don't cry so much. You're a man. She opened my hands that I gripped so tight, the nails almost dug in. And then she wrapped my muddy hands with her own hands. Jog your memories. You've accomplished much with these hands, haven't you? The way you folded the paper airplanes at Reese's violin contest, saving Violetta from the kidnapper, you did all this with your own hands. See? Maribel smiled as she looked into my eyes. I know it's hard to be left behind, but don't blame yourself for it. She spoke as if half of it was aimed at herself. I looked up and felt my eyes get heavy with tears again. But these tears were different from the one before. Actually, I already realized it, that my dream of one day making an airplane, regardless of what started it, had deeply rooted itself into my heart. Yes, I'll do it for myself, not for someone else, to fly the sky for my own dreams. That's the spirit. Handing me the handkerchief, smelling of a sweet pansy perfume, she smiled the most beautiful smile. Next time, I'm going to attach a simple motor to the craft, I said as I struck my leg into the transporter. That sounds interesting, Maribel smiled behind the rising curtain of light where her hands crossed. Okay then, I'll see you tomorrow. I'll be waiting. The transporter activated. Even after I reached town, I felt the sweet scent of pansy flowing from the transporter. Today was an unusually hot and muggy day. It sure is summer already, muttering the obvious, like Grandma. I pulled on my shirt as I went outside. Drawing water from the well into the watering pot, I was watering the half-shiveled rose bed when I heard a light metal crank. Jack, wearing a flower-patterned dress, Violetta was waving her hands from a bicycle. Hi Violetta, what's up? You know we're having a party tonight at my house. It's my big sister's birthday, but I wanted you to come as part of my saying thanks to you. Tilting her head as she asked, I raised the watering pot. You've got good food, right? I'm there. Can I invite Reese and Maribel too? Of course, I was gonna ask you to do that. Violetta laughed and went back up the road after a short goodbye. I guess she's still too embarrassed to invite them herself. Is it a girl's way of thinking? Oops, no time for deep thinking. Since I live clean but poorly, another sad story, I don't have any decent clothes. I'll have to go borrow some from Maribel. I threw the watering pot back and ran off to tell the others about the party. It's good to air my dresses sometimes. Doing her hair up into a ball, she said it's to hide her pointy ears. Maribel wore a simple, blue sleeveless dress and had a wine glass in one hand. Good for you, it's not for me though. Wearing the outfit that I absolutely wanted to refrain from, a bow tie and shorts, I munched on the smoked salmon on rye wheat crackers. Don't be so sulky, it fits you well. I'd rather have you say I don't. Jack, do you hate it that much? Lucky for you, Reese, you're wearing a tuxedo. You say that, but if I wear shorts, it'll fit me so well that you'll get disgusted. You have a point there, but... You too, Mr. Bubka's greeting is about to start. I guess I'll listen since he invited us. How admirable, Reese. Answering listlessly, I at least looked towards the stage. Mr. Bubka wiggled his large body up to the stage and cleared his throat. Not betraying his appearance, he spoke out with a thickly voice. Everyone, we're honored to have you all gathered here tonight for my daughter's birthday. Please enjoy yourselves to your heart's content. Doing so will become a memory of her happy birthday when she grows into an adult and act as the seeds of kindness towards all. He says some nice things. I don't want to bore you with a long speech. Everyone, please hold your glasses up. Cheers. A boisterous chant was raised. Pleasant clinking sounds echoed everywhere. You're here. With a flower in her lightly curled hair, Violetta walked up to us. I gratefully accepted your invitation. Violetta looked surprised by Maribel's archaic manner. Yes, I'm honored to have you here. Her words came out a little awkward, following up to the archaic speech, so we unconsciously laughed. What's so funny? Violetta slashed out, looking a little embarrassed. Reese calmly parried her. Sorry, I'll play the violin with you to make up for it. Huh? You have the piano out, right? Oh, did you not want me to play? Or did you not want to play with me, rather? It's not that, but are you sure? Reese smiled gently at Violetta, who was now bright red. Of course, I love your piano. Ah, thank you, said Violetta in a small voice as she smiled like a blossoming flower. It's getting awfully hot here. Maribel and I exchanged glances and went out to the terrace to cool off. Oh boy, that Reese. He's got talent as a player. I griped and rested my chin in my hands on the rail. Maribel twirled her long skirt around towards me. There was an impish smile on her white face. Don't be so jealous. You'll find a good girl in due time. It's nothing like that. I couldn't dare say that I felt sad that Reese is growing up faster than me. There's no reason to rush and become an adult, is there? Startled by her words, I found Maribel looking at me with a mysterious color in her eyes. Sorry, it's alright. I'm used to being left behind. She tried to act strong, but the air of sadness coming from her was so painful. I walked away towards a small shadow. The sonata of Reese's and Violetta's duet flowed from the windows. Doesn't this remind you of something? Aha! It's very similar to the night I was on the terrace watching the moon when you came in and broke the silence. That's right. Seems like it happened years ago, but it hasn't even been 1 year yet. There were lots of things since then. Maribel narrowed her eyes and looked up at the night. Something smells really nice. It's the smell of black lilies. The season's already come. Ah, it's a wonderful scent. Maribel turned around, swinging her wound hair. What is it? Jack, look up here. Looking up at the sky, there was a flashing star that surely didn't exist yesterday. Was a new star born? No, it's the light of a dying star. That's sad that a star is at its most beautiful when it's dying, but new stars are born from them as well. That sounds very romantic. Surrounded by the smell of flowers, we stood there just watching the blue moon. Are they really going for a romance here? What the heck? 2 more chapters. We're nearly there. Chapter 10, The Day the Sky Fell. Chicken Little reference. That new star sure is pretty. I can't wait for Maribel to show us through her telescope. Carrying the bucket filled with bait, Reese, dressed in summer clothes, raised his arm. Yeah, I wonder if Maribel's costume is dry by now. I laughed as I recalled the sight of her falling into the water. I don't know about that, but Violetta and Maribel should be waiting. Let's hurry up. The black roofs of the Bubka mansion loomed out of the orange sky. Maribel's costume was put out to dry on the balcony of Violetta's room. We asked a maid at the doorway to tell the two we arrived. We leaned against the brick wall and waited for them. After a while, Violetta came down dressed in white, laced summer dress accompanied by Maribel, dressed in a delicately embroidered red dress. Costumes do not dry well. I must admit it was rather careless of me. But the fishing was fun, added Maribel as she sagged her head down. Well, summer's just begun, so let's go fishing again when the costume is dried up. He's right. By the way, that dress looks really good on you, Maribel. Did Violetta arrange that for you? Yeah, it's my big sister's dress, but it contrasts well with her white skin. Of course it does. I belong to a race of beauty. It's good that she's back in a good mood, but she's such a queen. Then, milady, the sun has fallen. Shall we start for our new star observation party? I said as I shrugged my shoulders. Maribel snuffed shortly and said, Alright everyone, are we ready? We helped Red and Blue carry the telescope into the inner court. Hand that to me. Maribel peeked into the eyepiece and adjusted the fine adjustment dial. Then she gasped at one big breath. What is it? She had such an unusually serious face. Ah, it's nothing. The telescope is set on this new star. Go ahead and look as much as you like. Saying that, Maribel sat down on the edge of the fountain. Yeah? Feeling perplexed, we nodded and took turns peeking into the lens. It's a beautiful light. Yeah. Reese and Violetta smiled at each other. I quietly snuck away, trying to bother the two, and sat next to Maribel. Maribel was touching the embroidery with her fingertips when she looked up and noticed me. Jack, how's the aircraft coming? Huh? Yeah, the motor works great on my new craft. Her sudden question surprised me, but I answered casually. I see, Jack. Do you remember what we promised? Of course I do. That's one of my biggest motivations. I'm glad if it is. What's wrong? You don't seem to be yourself today. It's nothing, said Maribel as she combed her long blonde hair. It's probably just my imagination. Is there something troubling you? I'll do anything I can to help. I'm thankful if you say so. She dusted herself off and stood up. It's late now. Everyone go home for tonight. Her shadowy expression bothered me, but I didn't want to trouble Maribel, so we left the Crimson Castle. Swallow, nesting on the window roof of the music room, flew by the window. Watching the evening primrose waving in the wind, I suppressed a yawn. Ah, it's a great day. Rubbing my sleepy eyes, I looked in the direction of Maribel's castle. Huh? I saw an out-of-season sand cloud out in the outskirts of town. It came closer and closer to town, along with a small shadow inside. I only know one such vehicle. Maribel's anti-gravity bike. It can't be. It's the middle of the day. Even her costume is still at Violetta's place. Wiping the sweat off of my forehead, I squint my eyes to look more closely. Two small round objects following right behind her. Her long blonde hair blinked in the sunlight. A rolling of a pencil ringed inside the quiet classroom. It's really Maribel. Jack, what's the matter? Ignoring the teacher's call, I opened the door and ran out into the courtyard. Maribel. Seeing her burnt red skin, I ran out of words. I lent her my shoulder and led her to the shade of a tree. Red and blue circled above her worriedly as she laid down on her back. Ah, Maribel's face crinkled in pain. Looks like the cloth of the dress rubbed against her burnt skin. Sorry, don't worry. Beads of sweat form on her forehead, but she managed to answer me. When I laid her down trying to comfort her, Reese and Violetta finally came out into the courtyard. As each of us laid words trying to comfort her, Maribel glanced over with a strange and kindly face. For some reason, I felt my heart freeze. She licked her cracked lips, looked squarely into my eyes, and said, "Listen to me closely. That new star is a large meteor. According to my measurements, it's gonna hit this town around midnight." "What did you say?" Somewhere a skylark flew up and left off a big chirp. The sun flared white in our eyes, and the same lazy shine illuminated the day. Taking over the broadcast room, we looked at the townspeople gathered in the courtyard under the afternoon sun and sighed. Looks like no one believes us. Miss Dahlia and my uncle are trying to rally them, but... Oh, what are we supposed to do? As I flustered around, Reese raised his voice in surprise. "Jack, Mr. Bubka's here." Pinning our noses to the window, Mr. Bubka faced the townspeople. Violetta turned pale and ran towards Mr. Bubka, but she's too late. As we watched holding our breaths, Mr. Bubka got onto the stand. With his thickly voice, he announced, "I believe in what my daughter said, so..." Pausing his words, he glanced over everyone's face. "Everyone, can you help me take all my riches to the mountain? If there really is a monster at the castle, I'll give you all the money that you helped carry." When he finished his words, a commotion ran through the people. The townspeople gathered around Mr. Bubka's like wolves. "Mr. Bubka, are you sure of that?" "Yes, I promise in front of this many people. I, Bubka, never break promises." Mr. Bubka nodded deeply, then one by one the people went inside Mr. Bubka's house. Watching everyone greedily carrying out all the valuables that they can carry, Violetta sighed. "Thank you, Papa. I just wanted to guard my precious treasures, but I'm so proud of you. You were so wonderful." Looking down at Violetta through his sunglasses, he dropped the ashes of his cigar and said embarrassingly, "There's no time to be saying such things. We have to get to the ruins, too." Gathering the people, surprised to see a magnificent castle thought to be in ruins, we went into the Great Hall. "Is a meteor really gonna fall?" A man who was walking around nervously at the well, appointed room, pointed his finger at me. "Yeah, it'll come." I crossed my arms and looked back at him. We've been listening to Dahlia's radio, but there's been no such news. He's right about the radio. It's been left on, thinking that it might tell us something, but so far it's only playing the normal radio program. "Hey, Sonny, you haven't been seduced by that blood-sucking monster that's said to live here?" A wave of fear arose among the people as they heard what he said. "Yeah, otherwise there's no way any old ruin can turn into such a great castle. This must be an evil contraption. It may be smarter if we go back." "What should we do, Jack?" "Personally, I'd rather just leave the guys who want to leave on their own. But I know I'll regret it if I allow them to do that." "Darn. Hey, Reese, how about we get Maribel to forcefully seal the gates? They'll panic if we do such a thing." "You're right about that." The confusion kept spreading as we tried to come up with a solution. Right then, the beautiful melody of a piano played on the radio. Reese sprang his face up. "Mother." On top of the flowing melody, the DJ announced, "Today's guest on Radio 9 is Miss Karina Farlane. The song title is A Sonata for an Early Summer Night." Reese nods once and took out his bow and violin. An ensemble of piano and violin resounds through the great hall. Like the disappearing of shadows in the morning sun, the people stopped their talking and listened in to the two's intertwining melodies. Rubbing my chest down in relief, someone pulled on my sleeve. Glancing back, it was Violetta, who had taken Maribel up to her chambers. Jack, Maribel wants to talk to you. Okay, thanks. I walked quietly out of the great hall. Oh, that's the coffin that we find you in Wild Arms 2. That's nice. Laying inside her coffin, covered with velvet, Maribel looked smaller than ever before. Maribel, she quietly laughed as I called her name timidly. There are 2 things I need to ask of you. I grasped her hands as she added, will you do it for me? The first one is to contact Anastasia, who's in the neighboring town, and inform her of the situation and request for help. She's the daughter of a minor noblewoman. She will be of help for sure. I got it, the shortwave radio. That's correct. Red and Blue will tell you how to use it. Maribel's chest heavied up and coughed. Maribel, no worries. I will not die. It's just I burnt too much skin. Are you really sure? Aye, but I must go into deep sleep for a while. Don't give me such a face, Jack. Will you listen to my other wish? She looked satisfied as I nodded up and down. My other wish is that you will not break our promise. You may use the fruits of my research of the Emma motor as you will. Emma motor? It's one of the lost technologies. It works by returning a higher output energy than its input energy. It should serve useful for your plane. Thank you. I'll put it to good use. Truthfully, I wanted to solve its mystery with you before. Maribel laughed weakly for a moment, but quickly went back to a serious face. This is the first time I'm on the side of leaving someone behind. Jack, now I understand your sadness. Maribel held my hands and whispered. It's strange. I'm not afraid of the falling darkness, but your pain makes my heart sorrow. Don't say such an ominous thing. Are you gonna break our promise of our first flight? Scared and agonized, I grabbed her hands and yelled. Jack, With trembling fingers, Maribel pulled my hand close. My eyes blurred from the tears as an ear-shattering roar came falling from the sky, and then her mouth moved faintly. Not able to hear it, I pulled my ear closer when the white light colored the world. Oh, last chapter. Let's do it. Chapter 11. Here we go. The final chapter, 7 years later. Oh, 7 years later. Quite a time skip. The fountain I rested on contained the same clear water as it did that day. Under the setting sun, I planted my elbow and looked up at the sky. You know, I gotta admire myself. I talked to myself, remembering all the events of the last 7 years. Jack, the final check is okay. Hey, you're still shooting the breeze. Oops, sorry about that. Okay, I'll be going up now. Waving to my assistant, I stood up with a little wobble. I stepped inside the castle. The cold and dry air surrounded me. Everything's the same. The commotion in the inner court seems like a different world. Talking to myself, I walked down the spiral stairs to Maribel's chamber. Just like before, Red and Blue guarded her doors. They opened their eyes at the sound of my footsteps. Long time no see. When I called them, they glanced at each other as if in discussion and stepped back from the door. I took a deep breath and fixed my hair. Then I opened the door. What if she's not there? I shook the stray thought out of my head and took the lid off to the coffin. There she was. Just as I saw her last, she laid there with her eyes closed. Maribel. I called her name so nervously that I almost made myself laugh. Her eyelids quivered and then her sweet red eyes appeared. I peeked into her eyes, still a little unfocused. Good morning. Slowly, her eyes regained a soft light. Haha, you're earlier than I expected. Maribel sat up and smiled as she added that she expected I'd be a grandpa. Thanks to the Emma motor. As I winked at her, Maribel bent her lips, looking a little sour. You've grown mighty big. Sit down, you're tiring my neck. Oh, sure. Sitting down as told, she stood up. While Maribel stood in front of the mirror to brush her hair, I told her everything that happened till now. About the caravan and Grandma getting married, remarried for Grandma, but that they had gone away. About Reese and his mother putting out a record together that sold really well. About Mr. Bubka becoming mayor and successfully rebuilding Quartley. So what about Reese and Violetta? Those two are the same as always. They're in the inner court right now, so it's better to see for yourself. I can't wait to see them. Maribel, who had a ribbon tied, smiled inside the mirror. Aren't you cold? Her small shoulders shivered as she walked up the spiral stairs. Ah, well, yes I am. The season had changed since I started sleeping. Then put this jacket over you. I took my jacket off and handed it to her. It reeks of smoke. It's way too baggy for me. Maribel wrinkled her nose. You used to be small enough to disguise as a girl. Don't remind me of that one. How nice. I like that art. Coming up to the inner court, Reese and Violetta came running to us. Long time no see, Maribel. You two look well, words. You too, Maribel. You're the epitome of beauty as ever. Violetta laughed with red lipstick on her lips. Violetta, you've become a fair lady. Thanks, Maribel. I was thinking I've gotten a little attractive myself. Reese doesn't seem to have changed much, though. Surely his good looks like a cameo actor haven't changed, and his build is as thinner than that of Violetta's. Reese is such an economic body. He never gets fat no matter how much I feed him. I feel like I'm getting fatter in his place, added Violetta as she bent her brows. Eating as much as you do, anyone would get fat. Reese answered leisurely and laughed. You two haven't changed. Are you two living together now? Yeah, both of us had a volunteer spirit, right? By the way, Jack, shouldn't you be going now? Your assistant has been minding the clock. It's all over when you get an easygoing guy like Reese minding your time. Yeah, I guess so. Getting on from the pilot's side, I lent my hand to Maribel, who was getting on from the other side. Yes, I almost forgot. I baked you some apple pie. Please eat in the air if you have the luxury. Can't forget about the apple pie. Checking the meters, Reese poked his head into the window and handed us a nice smelling box. Thanks, it's been a long time since I had your apple pie. I appreciate your wonderful in-flight meal. You're very welcome. Shaking hands with Maribel, the two stepped back from the plane. Please be careful. I'll be praying for your safe return. Replying back to the waving to with a military salute, I closed the windshield. Going through the final checklist, I opened my mouth and asked, So Maribel, I've been meaning to ask you this for a long time, but when that meteorite fell, what did you say to me? You remembered. When I returned. Of course, Maribel. Of course, Maribel returned to the window. Her blushed red cheeks reflected in the glass. Just forget about such a thing. No, I won't. It's been on my mind for 7 years. Pretty please, I beg you. You become quite ill-natured. You think so? Confirming the machine's condition turned out all green, I flipped the switches one by one. Putting on the goggles I handed her, she pouted her lips and muttered, Don't you have any self-consciousness? Do you really want to know? I nodded to the eyes behind the goggles. I said that I'm glad that we were friends. What? Her eyes caught me as I blinked my eyes. I'm glad that we were friends and I'm proud of it. That's what I said. Maribel grumbled. Don't make me say such things. But I couldn't help myself from grinning uncontrollably. Say, friend, will you pull this lever with me? I put my hand on the control stick and urged Maribel to do the same. She turned round, eyed for a second, but soon softened her gaze. Very well, let's pull together. Maribel's cold hand wrapped over mine, synchronizing over Brett's. We start the countdown. 3, 2, 1. Take off! Our flying machine blasted off with an explosive sound into the sky of the evening star. That was really nice. Thanks, that was fun. So do I get the X key now? Thank you for collecting all the books. I spent a lot of time with Daddy, too. Here, I want you to have this. Isn't it pretty? A token of my appreciation. Story time complete. X-File key obtained. That was a really cute story. That was really cute. I'm glad we were friends. That was cute. Getting to see Jack get his plane in the end and just that was a really fun little story to do. I'm really glad I get to include that in the playthrough. That's really nice. Again, it might not be for everyone. Everyone might not want to go through the video, but if you don't want to see the story, you could just skip over it. And plus, I think to get the trophy, you can, just skip through the text. You don't have to actually read it, obviously. You just have to, read all the books. You could skim through it. But I wanted to include this in the playthrough. I thought it was a cute story. Also, a nice callback to Wild Arms 2. So, there you go. Those of you watching, hope you all enjoyed the adventure book story. We'll be back in the next video for Wild Arms 3 with the actual post-game. You know, doing Gunner's Division, Millennium Puzzles, you name it. We have a lot more to do. A couple more to do. Thank you all for watching. See you all next time.